Welcome, everyone. We are Cloud Native Porto, and first of all, thanks for everyone to being here. I will present our community, our team. Myself, I'm Paulo Dias. I'm a staff observability engineer at Five9. Also, Luis is also a tech platform engineer at Farfetch, and unfortunately cannot be here today. And Fabio, as the same, is advisor, Cloud Native Lisbon and KCD Port Organizer, also works for XGeeks. Now I will pass to my colleagues.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elia Barros. I'm an observability engineer at Five9, also a community organizer for Cloud Native Port.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. I'm Iris Durmishi. I'm a senior observability engineer at Miro and a CNCF ambassador.
This is our first year. Okay, we already have done so far 5 meetups. 2 more to go until the end of the year. We already have the dates. The details will be shared soon for the October meetup, for everyone to register, and please join us. We'll have good talks for multiple different topics. We also have food, as always, which is important for everyone. But please join. We are really appreciate it. It's open for everyone. You can find us on CNCF community groups, on Meetup, on LinkedIn. We also have call for papers open to everyone that wants to submit a talk about any cloud native topic, of course. Please join us also as a speaker. We really need it. We really need you. And let's now talk about observability.
So as you see, the title of our talk is "You Can Fix What You Can See, Tales from Observability Frontier." That explains the heads, by the way. And I guess traditionally, when you think about observability in a lot of companies, usually there is a dedicated team that is going to be responsible for the observability. And in a lot of places, it still is the team that is going to create dashboards, alerts, and so on. But I think more and more, and for us particularly because we all work with observability, we see this more a thing that it needs to change, because good observability comes from when all the teams are worried about that and are worried about implementing observability. Because nobody will know their applications like the people that manage every day, the right code for them every day. So in order to be properly set up, it needs to be a team sport. It needs to have all the teams, the developers, the operations, the network. Everybody needs to work together to have good observability. Otherwise, we are bound to have blind spots on our services and our application, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be waking up in the middle of the night on call and something being missing. But with that said, every signal, or at least the traditional 3 signals for observability, traces, logs, and metrics, are going to have some specifications, some things that you need to worry in particular about. And because of that, we are going to delve a bit into traces, logs, and metrics. And I'm going to hand over to Iris for traces.
Thank you, Elia. Let's see if I can know how to use this. Yes. So I don't know how many of you work in the observability sphere, or you're even working with observability at all, but I think a lot of people will agree with me that tracing is kind of like the lost child of observability. It's getting better the last few years, but still, every developer that I speak to, or every platform person that I speak to, when they're trying to troubleshoot something, they go directly to logs or they use metrics. But they forgot about this beautiful thing that is traces. And to make tracing even more appetizing and beautiful to you, I'm introducing tracing and OpenTelemetry together. I don't know if you're aware what OpenTelemetry is, but it's the newest, coolest tool in the observability sphere. Well, what are some things that you can do with tracing? Many people say, okay, tracing, cool, beautiful. You start from the beginning till the end. But it's so tiring. You have to scroll and scroll and you can't find what you do. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of things that you can do with your traces. Well, for one. Well, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but first, you can turn your spans into metrics as well. Sometimes there are some metrics that you just cannot collect by yourself, but you have tracing there. Bam, connect them to metrics through the span metrics processor. You can aggregate requests, errors, duration, and you can get all kinds of delicious metrics that you are not able to collect otherwise, especially from applications that it's very difficult for you to reach out to. Other things that you can do with tracing, and there are a lot of complaints here that in the observability sphere that are saying, oh, so much work we have to do instrumentation. Well, you don't have to worry that much about it anymore. There are amazing SDKs that you can use now from OpenTelemetry thanks to countless of people that are contributing every day. But you have something even cooler, which is zero code instrumentation. You don't have to do anything. Your code is instrumented on runtime. I mean, of course, we're not talking here miracles. You're going to get some of the basic information. You will have what you need to troubleshoot. And if you want to go deeper, you need to do some custom instrumentation. You used to use better SDKs. But it's a start, you know. If one of your teams is saying, okay, I want to use tracing, but I don't have the bandwidth in my team to actually care about observability. Well, tell them about zero instrumentation. Another cool thing that you can do with tracing, span events. So a lot of people are visual and they want to read what is happening with their data. And that's fine. You know, you go to logging and you have, oh, this failed, 404. This was successful, 200. And many people complain that they cannot see this kind of information because it looks different in tracing. But I'm here to tell you that that's actually not the case, because you can use something amazing that is span events. Imagine you have a call from the beginning until the end. You have traced every step, so you know exactly what is happening there. And you also have some text in it, that it can be custom or it can be automatic, that is telling you exactly what is working here and what is not. You can have the trace stack as well. I have a demo here, and we're going to share the slides later that you can play around with it. But basically, with some custom instrumentation, you can put amazing span events, so you won't even need logging anymore. Sorry, Paulo, I know that. I'm not trashing on logging, but what I'm saying is that it is much better, and you can have the information you get from logs in your traces. And the even more beautiful thing, so observability. Every time that you hear about observability now, it's like costs, expensive, too much data. We don't want it. Why? Because it is indeed a lot of data. And while I do not agree that observability is expensive or that the observability team spends all the money, that's not true, because observability is for everyone. It racks up quite a pretty bill. So what do we do about that? And we go again to OpenTelemetry and to the amazing things that it offers us. And I want to introduce today something that hopefully a lot of you are going to use, which is tail sampling. And I can vouch for it because we use it at Miro. And if you are aware of how big Miro is, we have hundreds of millions of users. And yeah, our bills are not that large. We can still afford it. So what you can do with tail sampling, you can improve the quality of your data and keep your costs lower. So I'm sure a lot of people are aware here how sampling works in tracing. You have a bunch of spans together. They're separated into traces, as you know. But what you do is you cannot collect 100% of it. So you do a probabilistic sampling, 10%, and some random things get dropped there. Maybe you're missing some very important information, maybe not, but at the end of the day, when your developers are troubleshooting an incident, there is a high chance that something here is missed because it was dropped randomly, or some traces are incomplete. So what do? You implement tail sampling. What tail sampling does is a processor in the OpenTelemetry collector is that it analyzes the full trace and then it applies the policies on top of it. For example, some good policies that we are using as default in Miro. All 400s are getting sampled. So every trace that has a 400 span in there, we are sampling it. Why? Because if something is happening, if an incident is happening, we need to know where the issues are happening. Depending on the application, for example, if a span is running longer than X amount of time, we want to keep it. The trace that contains it, we want to keep it. And for good knowledge and to have a more general view, we're also keeping, depending in the environment, 5 to 10% of normal traces. So here you have something that is always for sure. You're always keeping the errors, the spans and the traces with errors. So you will always know what is wrong with your application. You're also keeping the spans that are running longer that could tell you if there is an issue, and some general one. I know that a lot of people use spans also to create like these architectural views depending on the tool. So bottom line is here you can get creative. Your application A maybe doesn't need to tell something. You want everything, and you can afford it. You can 100% sample and store it. Your application B doesn't have any information. You apply a different policy to E. It's so creative and so amazing that you can create these policies that are always fitting to your organization, no matter how big it is. Keep your costs low, but the most important part is to keep the quality of your data excellent and important and also useful to your developers. It's not just let's store everything and keep it there just because. It doesn't work like that. And yeah, now we're going to segue to another pillar of the observability. So I think a lot of people will see this meme and are going to say, yeah, it's the same thing. So let's agree to disagree and pass it to Paulo to talk about logs.
Yeah, technically they are not the same thing, but we can use both and correlate the data. So, but let's start from the basics, right? And logging is probably the oldest signal that we have on observability, or the oldest pilar. And this image or meme, it's kind of a way to show that the logs are good if you use the proper log levels, right? So use the info when they should be info, and not put everything as info because it's the default log level that you have configured, and I just want to have my data and shown. This is also incur costs on the observability platform. Doesn't matter what it is you are using. Will also be hard to, if you want to do also sampling on logging, if you really want to only filter and keep warnings and errors and some specific volume of infos. So if the data is not useful and like we don't need to have it on info, use it on debug and only change the log level of your application if you really need it. Okay, it's one of my suggestions that I give to everyone always, and I have this discussion a lot with a lot of engineers because info, it's the easiest way to log. So yeah, like another thing that it's important in terms of logging itself, have a proper structured logging format. Doesn't mean if it's raw, if it's JSON, whatever, but have a similar or the same logging format across the same application, if possible, across the organization that you hire. So it's kind of make the things easier for everyone to make the data more readable. Also including context on it. If you already have, for example, tracing in your application, also includes, it's important to include the trace ID or span IDs, both on your logs to allow you correlate data across the signals. And also will also make things more filterable and also queryable. Like if you have the user ID properly defined, if you really need it, if it's a JSON format, I will make the things easier for you to filter for a specific user ID, username, whatever. Use OTLP format, which also is already shared in the previously. OpenTelemetry gives that ability that with the same SDK we can use all the signals. So it's easy to use OpenTelemetry format for all the signals and give you the data, which allows you correlate the data further and reduce MTTD, MTTRs, like wherever. And in the end, don't log secrets, please. Like, don't log credit cards data because it's kind of easy. I really want to know if the credit card was properly stored on database. I really want to know the password, if it's really properly stored or passed and special characters are not removed. Don't log it at all. Like, redact the data. Just use a placeholder or whatever at the source, and don't need like your SRE, DevOps, or whatever team that needs to manually redact the data with OpenTelemetry collector or whatever. Like, don't log secrets at all. You can prevent really big security incidents or leaks that can make your company image not so good. But yeah, in the end, structured logging is really important for you. Centralize your data. It's also important. Not only for logs, okay, but it's one of suggestions, and it's kind of engineering straightforward. Like if you have all the data centralized in the same place, at least that will allow you to correlate data. It's really important to identify the issues faster, like having your SLOs and so on really better defined. Another suggestion that I give for logs, at least for logs, for the order is also possible, but use message queues in the middle. You don't need to, at least, if you have an incident and you want to replay all the data that you have produced from an application, multiple application logs, you can go back and replay it and avoid losing any line of log during that amount of time. And again, use a single place for querying your data, not using multiple UIs. This is more as a user experience, but you'll also have a good benefit of it for creating even metrics based on logs, even alerts based on logs, also possible. But a single place for everything will, again, reduce your MTTD, MTTR, and improves your performance. Now we'll pass to my colleague to talk about another signal.
Okay, and I'm going to be biased, but metrics are the best of all the signals. I don't care of their opinions. But yeah, the reason I like metrics so much is, although I think they're a bit overused in some instances, because they really provide a visualization, a way to know how your service is running. Because by definition, a metric is a measurement capture of a service at runtime. So it can really provide you information of how your service was at a specific time, especially if you pick the right things to measure with metrics. And that, I think, is one of the first considerations that you need to do when you are starting to implement your code is, what do I want to measure? And that can be as specific as whatever your application does, or it can be the usual stuff: memory, CPU, HTTP requests, the time for your requests, but you really usually need to put some thought into that, because a lot of times everybody just ends up with a bunch of metrics that they don't use instead of they focus exactly what they need to measure in order to prevent incidents, because nobody wants to wake up in the middle of the night. And in terms of instrumentation for metrics, I think nowadays OpenTelemetry is becoming more and more the standard for all the signals, but I'm going to make a point for Prometheus, because the Prometheus has been a long time in terms of the metrics, and it is still a standard. And if you use OpenTelemetry Collector or Prometheus to collect your metrics, you can use both without any issue, because more and more the two tools are integrating to be compatible with both. And I actually have a link there where you can basically get linked to the specifications for both. But another thing that you need to consider is naming conventions. But those are kind of similar in a way, although if you know traces, the metrics have the dots and Prometheus have the underscores. But when you think about a metric, you usually all fall into the same structure, no matter if they come from OpenTelemetry or Prometheus. You will have a metric name. We'll have a metric kind, that is the type of metric. If it is a metric that always goes up or resets to 0, or goes up and down, or it can be grouped into a couple of buckets. And the good thing about metrics, you can do plenty of things with them, but you always need to think about things that can go wrong with metrics. And yeah, cardinality, everybody hears about cardinality, but I don't think there is such a thing as high cardinality. I think there is bad cardinality, because sometimes you need to have like 300 variation on a label, on a metric. That can be needed for your specific use case. But if you actually use them, if you just have a bunch of labels with a different variation that is basically just occupying space on a backend, is not useful cardinality. But yeah, cardinality is usually something that everybody talks about, but you can be very thoughtful about it. If it's something that is going to, in the end, result in an alert that is actionable, you can have all the labels you want. But if you don't, you just need to go back to the drawing board and think, what do I actually need to measure? Another thing is unused metrics, because like I said, if you go back to the drawing board and you really think about what you want to collect with metrics, you usually will not fall into the perils of have unused metrics. But I've seen plenty of times where you go to a Grafana, you go to a Persis, and you start typing a metric name, and you have like 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 metrics with the same name that are basically collecting the same information, and those can, guess what, those can be removed from your backend and not occupy space and not occupy your time when you're trying to debug for something. And yeah, and of course, they already spoke a bit about correlation between signals, and that is very important because, especially if you are on an incident, you want to have across all the signals your service name, another label of some sort, your trace ID or span ID. You want to have that information across all the signals so you can quickly debug any issue that appears. But then, let's go to the fun part of metrics. Everybody gets a dashboard. Because I guess everybody likes dashboards. They can be great to visualize right away what is wrong with the application or service. If you are a bit careful and picky with putting proper colors for different values, for thresholds, you can really get creative with their dashboards, and they can provide a real useful tool when you are debugging for issues. But of course, you need to put some thought into that. You need to take some time designing your dashboard, because in the end, you want to take the best advantage of your dashboard possible. But then, alerts. And because we kind of have like internal joke, there is a team that has a spam channel for alerts. You really need to be thoughtful about your alerts, because you can just go to the internet and copy-paste some sort of alert, and that might not work for you. You need to think, when you are designing an alert, is this also going to result in an action? Because if you're creating an alert for the sake of alerts, you're going to end up with a spam channel for alerts that don't lead you nowhere. A good alert is one that's either going to trigger you to do something about it or some sort of automation. That is a good alert. And can be a complex one with SLOs, with different values. Can be a simple fine-tuned alert. Doesn't matter. What matters is when you see that alert, when it rings you, you are actually going to do something about it. And yeah, of course, the best thing about alerts, if you ever played with KEDA and auto-scaling with some metrics, that is really, really fun stuff. And I guess now I hand over to Iris.
Just to wrap up what we're trying to say with our observability gospel here, data needs to be structured because good observability is really not a coincidence. It's very important to start good observability from the moment that you're instrumenting your application. So I've heard something in the community that it is intentional instrumentation. So when you're instrumenting, keep in mind what data you're trying to get, because I don't want to use a bad expression, but it will just pile up and then it will be unuseful. Intentional configuration, every part of your collection and transport of the data needs to be intentional how you're configuring it, so you're capturing the data that you actually need and you're not storing things that you will never use and will just make your incident response slower. So, as I was saying, not everything collected is worth storing. There is a lot of data that you really do not need. You do not need debug on all the time. That's only for 1 hour maximum. That's, if I were a dictator in the observability world, that's what I'm going to do. 1 hour of debug only. Make use of all open telemetry pillars. So we're just joking around and saying this is the best, but they're there for a reason. So make sure that you use them, correlate them. This will give you the best observability there is out there. Observability should not be noise. You shouldn't be getting alerted every second for something. You shouldn't be just getting logs posted there and you are never able to find the thing that you need, or the same with tracing and the metrics. And observability should be an out-of-box solution for most use cases. A lot of people might fight me on this, but if you have a good observability team, 90% of the use cases you don't need to do much. Instrumentation should be out-of-the-box collection, some alerting, and some dashboard. So you know, it shouldn't be a struggle every time you're building a new application that you always have to be, oh my God, now I have to spend 1 month to set up observability. It should be there for you once you are deploying. And of course, typical cloud native fashion, we moved from cowboys to Star Trek, live long and instrument your code. Thank you so much. We don't have time? Okay. We don't have time for questions, but please find us and join us on our meetups. We speak a lot, I'm sorry. We are always in our meetups, and we have an amazing community, and we're always open to talk. So yeah, let's talk observability, other cloud native topics. Thank you. Sorry about that.